with the open borders with the European Union, initially seemed okay because initially we were talking about first world countries with essentially same standard of living, same educational standards, yeah, and and the same sort of income levels. So we're not. Nobody minds if nobody with half, how no half decent person minds if there's a Spanish woman living up the street. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about a massive, massive pressure on this country, which can only afford so much. We can only afford so much. And also the other element with as well as opening up the European Union to the east, which meant allowing in low income countries, which was never going to work because obviously you're going to have a big flow in this direction. Then you have an oversupply of labor in the Western countries. But it was also the fact that you had no control over what, for example, what Merkel did. Merkel unilaterally opened the doors of Europe to the third world. And because there's an open border within, she can make that decision, and we all have to suffer for it. So this, these are the two main problems with open borders within the European Union. I would like us to, these are very difficult situations. I don't particularly want us to have to apply for a visa to go to France or to go to Spain, but the politicians made such a mess of what could have been workable. The Western European countries able to travel and live in each other's countries could have worked if they hadn't made a complete mess of it. If we'd had an external border that was robustly policed, it could have worked. If we had had the common sense to know that opening up to Eastern Europe, to low-income countries in the East, was going to cause chaos in the West. If they'd had any common sense, this could have worked. But they didn't, so they've left us in this mess, where we now need to control immigration between countries like France and Germany and Britain. And we do. So it simply is going to have to be a visa system. It's going to have to be a visa system, if for no other reason than to know who is coming in and out of this country. But even more importantly than that is to deal with the potentially millions of illegal immigrants that are in this country now. That to me is a priority. That to me is a priority. There will have to be an introduction of a visa system to visit. I mean, I went to Australia. It can be done online. It's a perfectly really easy thing to do. I mean, we have to find a way, of course, of continuing tourism and business travel without it being too cumbersome, with having something in place to prevent permanent settlement coming into the UK. I would put a complete freeze on immigration to the UK for at least 5 years. For at least 5 years. That doesn't mean that Heathrow shuts down. It's about people moving here permanently. I would put a complete freeze on that for at least 5 years, and then there are immigration laws in this country, and they're being completely flouted. And as for amnesties for illegal migrants, I'm not without a heart. I do feel for people, but for crying out loud, if you're going to grant an amnesty to illegal migrants, you are simply saying, here, whole world, come, we'll do nothing about it. It is an invitation to the world, to your country. It's harsh. Harsh things need to be done. We will feel sorry for people that we need to deport, but it has to be done. It has to be done. This is where leadership comes into it. Leaders have to make very difficult decisions. Leaders have to, unfortunately, be responsible for things which will harm people, which will harm. I'm sure there will be illegal immigrants who people will feel sympathy for them, including me. But it still has to be done, because if we don't remove illegal immigrants, the whole world is essentially welcome to come here, and it's the British people who will pay the price. And I think that a political leader in Britain should prioritise, no matter how much compassion we may have for others, must and should, both morally and democratically, prioritise the British people and indeed their children and grandchildren. So hard, difficult decisions will have to be made, and a leader has to step up and make.